When you look at the history of Islam in India, by and large, the extreme Hindus, the Hindutva, the RSS, the BJP, they present Islam as something that is foreign, as colonizers, as people who came and took away our culture, right? And this is something that we need to be very clear about. The Muslims who came to Hind and Sindh, they might have come from outside, agreed. And we can understand why some people would find that problematic. But they are not colonizers the way the British were. This is factually incorrect. Every time the Muslims came, they became Indian. And they ruled India as if it was their land. And they took on the culture and the customs, and they gave back to the culture and the customs. They were not external, aloof colonizers like the British were. The British didn't learn one word of Hindi. The British lived separate from the masses. The British imposed their language on us. The British looted everything, even the word loot, they looted it as well. And they took it with them. The British came when India was the most powerful economic force in the globe. And when they left it, it was a withering, symptomatic third world country. The British Empire would not be the British Empire had they not taken much of their wealth from the Far East, especially from India. You cannot accuse these Muslim dynasties of anything of that, because they took for their own peoples, which was the Indians. And Hindu and Muslim both benefited. It is factual to say India would not be in the India that it is today had it not been for the Muslims of India. The culture, the cuisines, the language, everything, the architecture. Biryani came from the Mughals. You wouldn't even, and I'm not joking, it did. You wouldn't even have biryani if the Mughals were not there. Can you imagine in India without biryani? Even will allow vegetable biryani, even though it's bid'ah in my opinion, but still will allow vegetable biryani, okay? That was a joke, by the way. But anyway, okay. My point is, this notion of this racist notion of a pure Hindustan, right? Without the Muslims, we would be like this. This needs to be corrected. I understand some fanatical, people of one faith are going to be angry. Why did that faith get involved? I understand. But to claim that Muslims were colonizers, that's simply wrong. To claim that Muslims ruled as a different category, different class, that is factually incorrect. And the India of today would not be the India of today had it not been because of Islam. Islam helped shape the Indian culture. And if the Muslims had not come to India, the India of today would be unrecognizable. We would not recognize what it is, right? I want to also tell you, by the way, I took a class at Yale by one of the leading experts of Indian Islam. She's actually from a Hindu background, even though she's agnostic. I took a class with her, and it was in her class I wrote about many things, including about a dynasty. Her main thesis, and she's coming from a Hindu background, by the way. She's not a religious person, but her ancestry is Hindu. Her main thesis, which she proved throughout that class, was something that I had never even heard of up until I took that class in 2005 or 2006. Because my whole life I was believing Indian Muslims and Indian Hindus have always been fighting one another, right? Her thesis, which she proved in her dissertation, and throughout the class she kept on referencing evidences. Listen to this. There was never religious tension in India until the British came. The British, as a policy, instigated religious hatred. They were the ones who fomented anti-Muslim attitudes in the Hindus and anti-Hindu attitudes in the Muslims. And they did this, why? Who can tell me why? Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. For 200 years, they kept on brainwashing each side to feel religious hatred for the other. And of the simplest evidences, which is mind-boggling in its simplicity, she said to us in the class, you can look at every single battle ever fought in the history of India after Ibn Qasim's reign, after that first generation, when you had a Muslim emperor or a Raja, Hindu or whatnot, you will always find in the Muslims' army some Hindus, and in the Hindus' army some Muslims. It was never a purely religious war. It was always politics. And Hindus and Muslims generally got along fine, and she always would say the first riot between Hindus and Muslims happened under British watch. In all of India's history, there was never a mob, Muslim versus Hindu. There was never a riot based purely on religious grounds until the British came and they fomented that. And then in 1947, both sides realized they cannot live with one another. And I say this, why? To calm some tensions of those who have some intellect. We understand there are religious differences between Hindus and Muslims. We understand sometimes those differences are irreconcilable. We will leave them to the next life. In this world, we don't have to be at each other's throats. In this world, for 1,300 years before the British came, 1,200 years, Hindus and Muslims live side by side, generally speaking at peace with one another. This is the general rule. It was the British that came, and the British did their deed, and as usual, they slithered away and they left the mess in the lands that they came with, and we see that mess right now with what is happening now. And that's why I wanted to talk about this issue of Ghazwa-i-Hind, to give it a different twist, to mention that, okay, maybe it did happen in the past, but there's no sense of animosity per se. Generally speaking, without any exception, every Mughal emperor had Hindu viziers, without any exception. There's maybe one or two. Generally speaking, every Muslim emperor had good ties with some Hindu dynasties and bad ties with other, sometimes Muslim and sometimes Hindu dynasties, as you know. And to claim that India has always been divided on ethnic and on religious terms is something that is simply untrue, and this is one of the tactics of the British. So I just wanted to bring this in there to make sure that people understand that this is something that we need to overcome, and we appeal to the people of good intellect and of sound faith that what is happening now, it is dangerous to your country, it is dangerous to law and order, it is dangerous to the stability of your own country. Your own reputation is going to be harmed, and we make dua for those that are oppressed because we know what is happening right now. And I think all of us should be genuinely worried about what is happening in that region. Also, with my utmost respect, and I say this, by the way, as you know, my parents are from Pakistan, so I am technically, even though for me India, Pakistan, honestly it's not a big deal. I'm born in this land, it's the same thing. You can barely tell the difference between the biryani. This is my personal opinion. But anyway, I say this, dear fellow Pakistanis, I speak to you as a Pakistani. In this tense atmosphere, for you to come and say, aha, see, in public, meaning in front of the other Indians or whatnot, aha, see, this is why Pakistan should have been created. Do you think this is a wise time to say this, given the dynamics of what is going on? Even if you believe it, do you think, because you understand what you're doing, you are taking some salt and you're adding it to the wound. You're taking some gasoline online and you're throwing it on, perhaps a Hindu person is on the fence, then you come and you mock, you come and you taunt. What's going to happen? Be wise in what you say. Even if you feel this, is this something you should be taunting others with? See, we told you. And now, how about our Indian Muslims? What are you want to taunt them at this stage? You want to make fun? What is the purpose of saying this? People are dying. People are, potentially, may Allah protect, is potentially going to go down genocidal, things, what's happening in the next few years. Be wise in the next few years. Try to help. Even over here, again, not to get too political, the main supporters of the guy in office are the people on this side of the Atlantic, not on that side. You know this. His financiers are on this side, right? They're interacting with us on this side. So maybe we cannot solve the problem very easily, but we don't need to make it worse amongst our colleagues, amongst those whom we interact with. We don't need to make it worse online. Be wise in what you're saying. Make dua for those that are oppressed. And there's a time and a place. لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَالٍ. There's a time and a place to say certain things. Now is not the time to go back to 1947 and say, aha, look, we told you so. Even if you feel that way. Rather, now is the time to talk about the positive contributions of the Muslims of India. The greatness that they brought, right? The language, the cuisine, the architecture. Imagine in India without Islam, you cannot. This is the time to bring those things here. And calm the situation down even as much as you can, even if it's not going to change directly, but that's our goal here. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, we pray that Allah Azza wa Jal makes it easy for our Muslims, brothers and sisters in that land and in all the lands. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect the peoples of those lands and of all lands, and to make sure that any evil is averted from them, inshallah ta'ala.